What's up, team? Happy Wednesday. I'm really excited for this live. And then I realize I keep saying I'm really excited for lives. I'm excited for all of them. We have absolutely incredible people who have been joining us these past 2 weeks. Today, we're going to wait for her for 1 second. We have a woman named Michelle. She and another woman named Melissa have an organization called From Privilege to Progress. There she is. Yes. Okay. Wait for it. Hi, everyone. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I am well. How are you doing, beautiful?
I'm so good. I kind of feel like I know you because when you have these relationships through social media, it's like you learn a lot about people and then I really don't know you. So I'm so excited to finally chat and learn more about you and just hear from you.
Yeah, you too. There are just not that many white influencers speaking up yet. And so when I saw a video you posted, I don't remember exactly what you were wearing. Orange. You were wearing like an orange something, and you were just so clear and you were so direct and you were so open and vulnerable. I was like, I need to talk to her. I need to talk to her as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, have you been doing with all this? Like, this is a big journey, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, first, because I want to repost it, so I just want to introduce everybody to you. So everybody that's tuning in from my side, this is Michelle. So Michelle, it is an organization or is it a movement that you and Melissa are creating? I'm not quite sure. Does it matter which one you want me to reference?
No, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's a movement that we started over 2 years ago, but we are an official organization now. We're an official 501(c), so we're both.
Okay. So if you are not following them right now, go follow From Privilege to Progress. I've just tagged them in my stories. I'll tag them here right now. I would like to hear about your story and how you guys met, because I know it's very, that's an important story to tell right now. So if you don't mind jumping into that and letting us all learn a bit more about you through how From Privilege to Progress was actually created and born.
Definitely. So if you remember, about 2 years ago, there were two Black guys that were arrested in a Philadelphia Starbucks for not buying a coffee. That is our origin story. So Melissa and I were there at the same time that day, but we were complete strangers. Never saw her before in my entire life. And what's interesting is that I had been living in Philly for 5 years, but that specific Starbucks, I didn't like to go to that one because it wasn't diverse, like at all. I would actually walk an additional 4 blocks to a different Starbucks just to feel like it was more diverse. That's really important to me. So this specific day, it's funny because now that all this has happened, I feel like it was divine intervention, that something told me to go to the Starbucks this day. I don't know why. It was the second time I'd been there in 5 years that I lived in Philadelphia. And Philly is actually a very diverse city. It's a very Black city, but this particular area of Philly is very gentrified and it's very white. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna go here this day. I walk in, same scene. One other Black guy, one brown guy. I'm like, whatever. I'm already here. I'm not gonna leave like a weirdo. So I sit down, get a coffee, and I'm doing my work. I've been there for about 45 minutes of working, and I saw 2 Black guys walk in, and I was watching them. They were adorable. The one with the green coat and the beard, he was so freaking cute. So I'm like watching them, like, these boys, and I'm walking in. You're like, well, how do you know what happened? And I'm like, because I was checking.
I was watching.
I was really watching what was happening.
Love it.
They walk in, they go up to the barista, they say, can we use the bathroom? And she said, no, it's for paying customers only. And they said, okay. And they sat down. And that was it. Nothing else happened. I saw her walking away and I saw her mouthing something to herself. And I said to myself, I don't know why, but I think she just said something racist. Like, my gut, in my heart, my chest, everything was like, she just said something racist. And it's important that in those moments, we check ourselves and we ask ourselves, what is going on, Michelle? Why are you having that thought? Now you're being prejudiced. You have no idea what she's saying. Maybe she forgot some simple syrup in the back. How do you know? You need to put your head down and you need to work and mind your business. Because I was literally just like watching them. So I put my head down, I keep working, and about 5 minutes later, the cop showed up. which was weird because I'd been there for like 45 minutes. And so I assumed they were responding to something that happened earlier in the day, maybe even the day before. I was trying to figure out, I was like, oh, like I want to know the dirt, you know, what's going on. So I'm trying to like, I'm close to the counter. I'm trying to like eavesdrop to see, you know, if I can hear, you know, what the drama is. And I heard her lie. And I heard her say, those two guys in the corner are refusing to leave. And I immediately started sweating because I was like, oh, my heart started pounding. And I was like, oh my God, she probably did say something racist, because what the actual F? What was scarier is that there was no investigation by the police. Like they didn't ask any follow-up questions. They weren't like, well, what happened? Tell us the story. None of that. They said, oh, those two in the corner? Okay. So now I'm sweating. I look over at them. Their names were Dante and Rashawn. I know their names now. I look over at them. They look at me. I look at the cops. They look at, it's like there's like the three of us are realizing something is very wrong here, and we're like the three of us were getting scared. So they beeline for these guys. 2 cops turned to 4, turned to 6, turned to 8. 8 police officers there, 8, to arrest 2 guys that essentially didn't buy a coffee. So I'm getting up, and so at this point, you know, when you're about to like have a panic attack, it's almost like you don't know what you're gonna do, but you think you know something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
In that moment, I said to myself, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I gotta do something, because no one around me is doing anything. They're not saying anything. They're not moving. The white guy next to me had been there for 45 minutes. He didn't have a coffee. I saw a white girl mid-jog come in, use the bathroom, and I remember thinking to myself, that's interesting. I wonder if she works here, that they just give her the code. I wonder if she's here so often that they know her and they just give her the code. Because when you're a person of color, when you're a Black person, sometimes you police your own body. I don't do those things. I will buy something just to not have attention on me. So when I see other people do it, I'm like, damn, maybe I should just start doing that, you know? So that was really infuriating to me. I was like, this is not about coffee, because half the people in here don't have coffees. Right. And that's what I told the Starbucks. Someone said, what's going on? And I said, they're being arrested for not buying a coffee. Half of you people don't have coffees. And that's when people started recording. So I'm sweating, I'm shaking. I heard the cops, they were like, you're going to have to leave. And the guys were like, why? It doesn't make any sense. It was like, you could hear a pin drop. That's how quiet the Starbucks was. Their friend showed up, happened to be a white male, who was like, how is this not obviously racial discrimination? So him and I were the only two pretty much yelling at that point, but it didn't matter. They were being handcuffed and they were being taken into a squad car to be taken to jail for not buying a coffee. At this point, I'm physically shaking. I'm looking at my hands. I'm getting clammy. And I'm like, I got to do something, because this is insane. It's insanity to me that no one is doing anything.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what is everybody in Starbucks doing? Just watching it like it's a...
Watching. Actually, someone that was sitting next to them actually got up and walked to the other side of the Starbucks. And I was like, you coward. Are you serious? You couldn't say anything? So even though it was a risk for me, because I'm like, these cops are arresting a Black person for doing nothing, and I'm about to approach them. But I had to. Like, I'm thinking, you know, these are my brothers. I don't know them, but these are my brothers. Yeah. So I walk up to the cop and I said, why are you doing this? And he said, oh, it's for paying customers only. Or no, I'm sorry. He said, go ask the barista. And I was like, that's an interesting response. Is that how this works? I just call 911 and you just remove anyone that we want? Is she your boss? I didn't realize that that's what was going on here. So I said, okay. Like, which is weird. Like, you're allowing me to go like confront someone. You know, that's not de-escalating. That's allowing me to escalate. Wish I did. So I walked up to the barista and I said, why'd you call the cops? Because her face and her chest, whoosh, right, bright red, immediately flushed. She started stuttering and she was like, oh, I really can't say. In this very fake damsel in distress type of voice, kind of like the Amy Cooper, very fake, like, oh, like something happened. And I'm like, I can tell you, I watched the entire thing from beginning to end. So I said, did you feel like your life was threatened? And she ignored me, and she like walked on the little Starbucks aisle, so I followed her. I was, oh, hell no, this girl's not going to ignore me. I asked her again. I said, did you feel like your life was in danger, like you were being threatened? Wouldn't look at me, wouldn't make eye contact, wouldn't say a word to me. So I'll be honest, I yelled at her. I called her an effing coward. I walked back to my table, and I'm packing up all my stuff. And I'm like, all these white women are just like staring at me. There's a white girl in the corner. Her lip was quivering. And I was like, oh my God, if she cries, I'm going to cry. We're friends now. And a white girl next to me, she was almost like waiting for my direction. I was picking up my stuff and she was like, yeah, okay. Like, I'm going to pack up my stuff too. And the only other person to address the Starbucks that day was Melissa, who was now my partner. We locked eyes from across the room. She stood up and she was like, I come here all the time. I was just here the other day for 4 hours. No one ever asked me to leave, and you know why. So we basically staged a walkout. I asked the cops again, and I was like, do you understand you're arresting 2 dudes for not buying coffee? And they turned their backs to me. They literally physically turned around and turned their backs to me. So I remember she like walked up to me, Melissa walked up, she was like, I have to get this on social media. I didn't have a Twitter or Facebook at the time. I wasn't really active on social media, barely was on Instagram. She was, is this caption okay? I was like, yeah, I didn't even look at it. She was like, is this okay? I was like, yeah, whatever, just post it. And I didn't even know it had went viral for like 2 days. I had no clue because I wasn't on social media. I didn't have cable. I didn't watch the news. And I had people texting me saying, Michelle, like the video you told us about, the incident, it's blowing up. I can hear your voice. You need to, I'm not going to be like, oh, it's me, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, that was me. But I did notice that they were centering Melissa. It was like, look at.
And Melissa's white, for anybody tuning
Correct.
in that doesn't know. Yes.
So they were really centering her. And I noticed that, and I was like, you know, I'm like, typical. So I wasn't thinking of saying anything, because to me it was like, duh, you know, even though it was secretly upsetting me. Unfortunately, she somehow found me. I got a random text message from someone in the Starbucks that day saying, Melissa DePina's trying to find you. So we met up that following Monday. I remember walking into a restaurant. She looked at me and she was like, I feel like we're long lost best friends. We sat down. We already had pieces of paper and pens. We're like, what are we going to do? And we just started brainstorming. We were like, okay, now that the world is finally paying attention to what racism actually can look like in 2018, we need to keep this conversation going, start an awareness campaign, let people know, and make people understand that you have privilege and you need to use it, because Melissa used her privilege to share that video, and it crossed into networks that otherwise wouldn't have seen it.
Yeah.
Because
I also do want to, I want to touch on something too, because you were bringing it up. One, you were having already a physical experience. Like you knew already by the time that they walked in, you already knew there was something off. And what I think is really important for white people when we're listening to these stories to really hone in on is the risk that you would be taking to speak up and stand up and say the right thing, and how easy it is for white people just to remain quiet in those instances, to turn an eye, for people to walk up, pack their bags and walk out, and how important it is that we in these moments decide to do the exact opposite, decide to protect you. Like that is our moment to step in between you and the cops as well. Because if they're doing this to two innocent black men coming in, who knows what they could be doing to you as well. So I think in these moments, and I there's always takeaways in all these conversations, but from this one right there, one of the most important things would be that any of us white people sitting in that space, holding that privilege, watching what went down, was there to not only protect those men, but to protect you, and not put it on you to be speaking up and interfering in that situation.
Yeah, I was really angry that day.
Yeah.
I had a meeting that evening. I canceled it. I remember we walked out and there were a bunch of white girls, because I was the only black woman in there. And they were like, I can't believe that happened. We would have been so pissed. We would have freaked out. And I said, and you would have been able to freak out because you're white. And they looked at each other and they were like, you know what? I think at that moment they got it. In that moment, because if I had not said anything, we probably wouldn't be having a conversation.
Right.
Because no one was paying attention. They probably just assumed, oh, well, I assume the cops are doing what they need to do.
Yeah.
But in that moment, once you start to understand, there's no denying in that moment. And I think for a lot of white people, they need to have an interruptive experience. I think what's going on right now is everyone's collective interruptive experience was Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and then George Floyd, especially George Floyd. Because that was such an interruptive experience for so many people who watched that video who've never seen any, I didn't even watch it. So I think that's what's happening right now. I think collectively, we're still not back to work. You can't turn off the screens.
Yeah.
You
can't be distracted.
You can't be distracted. And this feels different to me. This moment feels different to me. I've never had so many of my own personal friends reading books, doing things. I've never seen so many white people at these protests. Like, it gives me chills. Like, I get teary-eyed. I get so emotional because this is what we need.
Yeah.
If it was up to us, if it was up to Black people, we would already have equality.
Right.
We would already be being treated fairly. It's just, we just don't have, in this system, we don't have that power. Yeah. And that power comes from us working together, but we need the white voices. So that's why anytime we do a speaking engagement, Melissa and I are on stage together to model these behaviors, or to model these conversations, to talk about her experience growing up as a white woman, my experience growing up as a first generation Ghanaian American, growing up in a white town, all kinds of identity issues there. And just realizing that two regular people did something that caught the, and we're not telling everyone to go out there and be activists, but in your own personal life, you can do things on a daily basis. If you open up your eyes, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you start realizing that it's in every system, you can start with where you work. Research your industry. Where are the ways in which people of color are being left out? Because I'm sure that they're there.
Yeah. Yeah. Down to the dollars that you spend. I mean, at this point in time, there's no way you can't get involved in some way, shape, or form. I mean, at this point in time, there's not everybody, and they keep saying not everybody has to be on the front line at these protests and marching, but at some point in time, you have to be willing to wake up and to recognize what's going on and to create the changes around you. And all of us are going to be creating changes in a different way, and that's fine. There's no one way to do it, but it needs to happen right now. How do you feel, like, as a Black woman experiencing this right now? I can only imagine how it feels to be maybe like you're hopeful because you're seeing a lot more people kind of like wake up and become aware and active, but also I feel like you've seen this many times before. And then the preparation for being like let down again and to have white people fail you again must be so incredibly real as well.
To be honest with you, there have been times over the past 2 years where I thought to myself, like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, like I get tired, emotionally tired. Like, if I read, like, I started reading The New Jim Crow, and like, I'll get physically tired. Like, my body, I remember one time I was reading it, and after, it was like 7 p.m. and I went to take a nap, and my boyfriend was like, you know why you're tired, right? And I was like, why am I, how do you know? He's like, because you just read that book, because it's so heavy. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Because when I read nonfiction or when I read fiction or something fun, I'm up, I'm energized, whatever. But when you read these things, you're like, whew. So there have been times where, because we've seen these waves over the past 2 years, because it was almost like the Starbucks was that first video that people started recording the videos of the white women calling the cops on people of color for doing nothing. There was, oh my gosh, there were just so many. It was like the first one. But again, there was very little change and very slow movement. 3 weeks ago, we were at 15,000 followers. Now we're at 250 something thousand.
Right.
So that's why, so that's why I feel this time is different, because I've watched slow progress. We were like, I would wake up, I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. But then for some reason, I would just get energized all over again. I mean, not for some reason, looking at my boyfriend, looking at my brother, my sister, my mother, my father, and you remind yourself why you're doing this. Because to be honest, those guys in the Starbucks, they reminded me of my brother. Very cool, calm, swaggy demeanor, just chill. And I'm like, I would really hope that someone would do that for my brother.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the thing is like, I just think it's really important for white people, like, to hear your story right now and to take away, like, one major takeaway from that is being able to step into situations right now. Like, there's tons of conversations around what the changes are going to be, but a lot of it should be the personal changes that we're going to make and the personal things that we're going to do. And one very incredibly important one is to recognize that what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And when you are seeing something wrong, it is your job. It is your duty as a human being watching something happen to another fellow human being to step up and to intervene. As white people, we so casually get to walk around like the police know what's right. The police do what's right. They're out here protecting us. They're not. They're only protecting us. And so I think one of the biggest takeaways from your story is And one of the hardest things to hear is that nobody fucking stepped up in that moment except for you, and you had the greatest risk in that moment, and what sounds like Melissa. And I think that's so incredibly wrong, but so what happens every single day in our society. So it's just, I hope we start waking up to that.
Every once in a while, I think about the white dude that like got up and walked to the other side of the Starbucks, and I wonder sometimes how he feels. Right? You know, I wonder if he's. I would imagine there's no part of him that could have potentially feel guilty. But the only time that you should ever feel guilty is if you don't do something. That's the only time, you know. Like, I mean, if he were to turn around and and learn something from that and use that, I say, shame and guilt are not. They're not useful emotions. They're emotions and they're valid, but they're not necessarily useful specifically, especially in this fight. Like, use that for fuel for change. Oh my gosh, I've been so silent. This is terrible. How could I have done this all my life and just ignored it? Use that to motivate you to do something about it going forward. If I saw him today and he was marching, I'd be like, thank you for finally joining. Thank you for finally showing me.
Yeah, it's never too late, but
yeah, everyone's on their own path. And like I said, friends of mine that I never thought would be reading books like White Fragility or like, oh, Michelle, it's sold out. And I'm like, oh my God, yes. But at the other end of that, I also lost friends. I lost my best friend of 26 years. Doesn't talk to me anymore. Like,
damn.
What?
Was it a white woman?
Known her since I was 5, 6 years old. I actually just cried about it like 3 weeks ago, like, because I thought I was over it. And then you start thinking about it and you're like, damn, like you really never saw me. Like you really never. And then you start thinking about the times where there were maybe some clues that didn't really see you. And then you think to yourself, why did I let those things go? Like, why did I just brush that off my shoulder? I remember one time she gave me a book. I'll never forget this. She gave me a book titled White Girl Problems. And I was like, why would you think that I'd want to read that book? She goes, oh, well, everybody has problems. Everybody has girl problems. And I'm like, yeah, but this book specifically is not going to address any problems that I have. Like, I'm going to have, yes, all the problems in this book and then Black female problems. Right. Things like that. Things like, after the 2016 election, I was very, very sensitive. Hate crimes were going up. If you're a person of color, you knew that. You felt it. It was almost like it was in the air. And I remember once telling me that I was too sensitive. I was being too sensitive. And I was like, And she apologized, but I was like, something feels off. And then I became an activist, and her and her husband came to one of our meetings, and very disruptive. She wasn't, but her husband was asking a bunch of questions. Like, you really think that, our system is racist? And I'm like, why would you come to my activist meeting and be asking me questions like that? Insanity. And then after that, I haven't seen her for 2 years.
And has she reached out now in any way, shape, or form?
She has. Like, on my birthday, she'll text me, which has been twice because it's been 2 years. And to be honest, recently she texted me, just said, hey babe, how you doing? And I was like, that is not the right way to approach me after not seeing me for 2 years. Hey babe, how are you doing? What do you mean, the past week or the past 2 years?
Yeah.
Which one?
Damn.
That's why. And I used to put it on myself for not having a conversation about race. I'm like, maybe I didn't talk about it enough. Maybe I would have found out earlier. Maybe this would never happen. But
Michelle, that's not your job.
I know.
That's not your job.
I know. But
it's not your job. Yeah, I can only imagine. But it also, you get to a point in time where when you're like it's not even just about racism, it's about anything in life. When you're living your life in a certain way and other people aren't willing to step up in that way, your presence is going to be a threat to them. And and a lot of people, and I'm sure you've had friends step up and step into that relationship with you, but a lot of people won't and can't, and they're going to fall back, and that is what it is. But I think right now, and I mean, I've seen relationships change, and it is what it is, but you have to be focused on what's important to you right now. Monique actually said it yesterday as well on the live. Like, what do you value? Do you value Black lives right now, or do you value a friendship that doesn't value Black lives? Like, where are we at right now? That seems pretty clear and simple. So
yeah, I have white friends telling me, Michelle, now that I'm posting about race, I'm losing followers. And I'm like, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen. And they're like, I can't care, right? And I'm like, no.
No.
I can't care. There's that much room that this bring us all together. Zero room. Like, we are in, this is our generation's civil rights time. We are in, I believe we are in a revolution, literally. And people are going to remember this when they're 60.
Yeah.
What did you do during this time? Like, you know,
Oh.
You're having conversations every single Monday with Nikita. She's incredible. Like,
isn't she?
Oh my God. And she's beautiful and she's incredible. And like, you're having these conversations, like, just have the conversation. That's why we like to have these conversations that are interracial. Like, you're a white woman, I'm black. For people to have some kind of framework to be like, it's not that scary. Just talk about it. But I think it's hard for people if you've never come to terms with your whiteness. Once you start coming into that, you're like, holy crap, a lot has been going on that I did not recognize, and the shame and guilt can stop you. So I'm actually also very curious about you. Like, I mean, I'm like, where are the white women who are talking like this?
Wow.
You know, like, what have you seen throughout your life that has brought you to where you are today? How is it that you can speak about this and talk about these things in such a comfort that you don't see often?
Well, it's not a comfort. I mean, I will tell you, I very much, as a white person, you have to understand that it's going to be uncomfortable but when I question that about myself, and forever when I have, the uncomfortableness is coming from somebody that is a perfectionist. The uncomfortableness for me comes from getting something wrong and doing harm. And so then you just sit and you weigh, like, well, what's more important? My ego, you know, not wanting to do something wrong, or literally not being willing to be vulnerable and learn from the shit that I'm gonna do wrong. I am a white person born into a system that views me as superior and treats me as such. I am going to do everything wrong as I de-learn everything I've learned. So for me, it's definitely been a process of having to step forward and be uncomfortable every single time. I'm not comfortable when I get on, especially lives. I don't like to talk. So even to be on a live period, I'm uncomfortable. And to talk about these are hard topics to talk about. And I think we as white people have to be incredibly willing to be uncomfortable right now, because our silence is causing so much damage. And I don't know if you're frozen. Are you there, Michelle? Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. For me though, I grew up in a white family, in a white neighborhood, white private school. And it wasn't really until I went to high school, which is still a predominantly white high school, that I started kind of like waking up to the world isn't white, as fucked up as that sounds. And then in college, I dated a black man. And that was kind of when I was like, oh shit, my experience as a white person in this world is completely different than the experience that he's having. So that was kind of I think probably my wake up moment.
Do you remember some of the things you saw?
Well, his is a little bit different because he was a star athlete. And so he was treated already very differently. So it wasn't like everybody wants to know the negative stories that happened. And they were very twisted in like a positive way. Like it was awful to watch in that way, right? Like so that is a whole different story.
Yeah.
But it really, for me, for the first time, I was so close to him that it was so eye-opening to watch just how people treated him and the differences between him and I. And then I wanted to be a social worker. So I'd never had any intention of being a trainer. Like that was not my thing. So I was already interested in working with human beings. So I think like my love for like understanding human beings and fighting for human beings and like what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong has always been there. But now that I have a little bit more of a platform, it's been a call to action for me of like, so how are you going to use it? What are you going to do?
Mm-hmm. Did you ever see that movie Get Out?
Yeah.
Was that what, because that was my experience. I remember watching that movie in the theater and texting my siblings and being like, yo, y'all need to watch this movie.
Yeah.
Because growing up in a white town, like you said, when you are like tokenized, it's like a positive thing, but it's uncomfortable.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
People have touched my hair.
Yeah.
When I had long braids, I'm like, what is happening? You're touching me. I don't know you. Touching my skin. Oh, your skin is so dark and pretty. You're touching me.
Yeah.
I don't know you. Or being just super extra nice, unnecessarily. Yes. You're like, I'm pretty sure this is because I'm black and you're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm going to take it because it's better than you being mean to me, but it's weird.
but it's not really, I mean, but it's so, I can't even imagine. It was so fucked up and twisted watching it happen to him. So I can only imagine, I can't imagine what it feels like to be happening to you. And I think that's where, yeah, and my best friend is a Black man. I have been around Black human beings the majority of the later part of my life. And they're some of my best friends. And so I've been able to be in close proximity to the differences between how they live their life and what goes on in their worlds and what goes on in the world that I'm literally right next to them and living in, but that is so completely different. So yeah, I think for me right now and what's going on, I've never been one to be silent. But I think one of the biggest things that I realized was if I have an opportunity for white people to be on my platform and following along with potentially how to just engage in conversation, or they may listen to what we're talking about and take something away, then that's what needs to happen. Because the change, white people need to be stepping into creating this change right now. And that's really where I feel I am a white person and can speak to white people and in that way. And if I don't, then I'm part of the problem.
Exactly. That's what we like. So we found this study a few years ago that said, if you're white, your social media is likely 91% white. And if you're Black, it's likely 88% Black. So your real life is often very segregated, just like social media. Yeah. So like people aren't even seeing stories.
Yeah.
The stories aren't crossing over. So that's why we keep like emphasizing for people to like share our content, share it to your story, share whatever, because every time you do that, you are sharing it to your network.
Yeah.
You know, like, and eventually you'll keep reading things, you'll get more comfortable, but we're like, educate yourself is number one, because we grew up, I mean, growing up in a white town, I learned everything white, to the point where when I was a senior in high school, I did my senior project on the Holocaust. Like I had that much knowledge about white history. I grew so much empathy for Jewish people. I was like, we have to talk about this. We have to talk about these atrocities. Like I've always been a very emotional person. So I wanted to talk about that. And I often wonder, where is that reciprocated empathy?
Yeah.
I think it's because of the strategic, like purposely leaving our history out of the textbooks.
Yeah. Especially if you grew up and grew up in a white town and went to a white school, that was nowhere in sight.
You know, it's funny because about 3 weeks before the Starbucks incident happened, I was drafting a letter to my grade school administration to be like, you guys could have really helped with racism in our town because when you only tell the story from the victor, it makes the people see themselves in that story and think, well, then, we're amazing. We're great. And everyone else and the Black people they were the slaves. I learned about Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and Jackie Robinson, as if they were like the only 3 Black people that existed before me, right?
Yeah.
So it subconsciously gives you a message that your history doesn't matter. And your only history was that our Black people were slaves, and then they were freed. Then there were some uncomfortable things, and now we're here.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa. And when you start educating yourself, like the more I'm watching people educate themselves, the more they just naturally, they just care because they realize, oh my God, I remember I watched 13th and I had to stop it within the first 10 minutes because my parents are from Africa. They're from Ghana. So you come here, you don't know the history of this country. You have no idea. So growing up, I was experiencing the racism at the same time, not understanding why. I'm like, this is so weird. Okay, I know that they don't like me or whatever because I'm Black, but why? Right? But it was too painful for me to look into it because I knew what the stereotypes were. I didn't want to be part of that stereotype. I didn't want it to apply to me. So what I did, unfortunately, is I tried to separate myself from Black America. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to hold on to my African identity because it feels like white people accept that more. They would, like the whole Get Out scene. Like, it was like, I could be in a group of people and I could feel white people literally overlooking me, not wanting to make eye contact with me. And then I would start speaking, then, because I sound white, they would kind of be intrigued. And then I would test it. I would like do my own little sociological experiments. And I'd be like, yada, yada, yada. I'm Ghanaian. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, that's interesting. And I'm like, bitch, about 30 seconds ago, you had no interest in me. So when I realized that worked, it was a coping mechanism. It was like mentally what I needed to do to survive that environment.
Yeah.
And I held on to that until I was about 23. And then I went to Penn State, which is very segregated. I was expecting, it was not, it was very segregated. And I was 23 and I was in a club and 5 cops approached me dressed in all black with crime unit and bulletproof vest on and asked me to come outside the club. I was like, what is going on? About 5 minutes before that, a white man had walked kind of up like this far from my face and was like looking at me like in my eyes. I was like, what are you doing? This is weird. And then I realized when I was outside with the cops, I saw him in the corner standing there. And I was like, what is going on? I don't know this person. Why did he, what is happening? So when I tell you that the cop was this big, he was probably like 6'5", 200 some pounds, big white dude. The way that he was talking to me, I was so terrified that I was started peeing myself. 23-year-old woman, I'm like, I'm peeing myself because I'm terrified of what is happening. I do not know what's happening. I found out, apparently, they thought I was a thieving whore. This white guy took home a prostitute from the same club that I happened to be in, and I happened to fit the description.
Because, okay, yeah.
Right. I was like, wait. You think I went home with this dude and stole all his money? I was like, I work at Nationwide Insurance full-time and I work at Calvin Klein part-time. What are y'all talking about? So again, not really understanding police brutality and like how deeply embedded and racist the whole system is. I told the cop, I was like, this is not okay. I said, you can't treat me this way. He turned around, he comes back to me, he goes, this is your fault. He got in my face. He goes, this is your fault. And in that moment, I was like, oh my God. I was like, my fault for what? For being black?
Yeah.
For fitting the description. And it was in an instant. I was like, it doesn't matter how many white friends I have. It doesn't matter how many white men I date. It doesn't matter how educated I am, the way that I speak, the way that I dress, the way that I carry myself. It doesn't matter. I'm a black woman in America. And at any point in time, I could be subjected to police discrimination. A white female cop at the time grabbed my arm, pulled me to the side, and she said, I think you should go report him tomorrow because I've seen him be racist before. So the next day, went to the police station, I reported him, and they're like, oh yeah, we've gotten complaints about him before. I'm like, oh, okay. So can you explain to me then why he was a lead officer on an investigation when the suspect was black, when you know that he has racial sensitivity problems? And then on top of that, I'm thinking to myself, and I'm like, wait a minute. Why did she intervene in the moment? Why did she just, I mean, I'm thankful that she was like, he's been racist before, go say something, but like, why wouldn't you say something in that moment? And on top of that, all my friends were there. All my boys were there. My girlfriends, and no one did anything.
Oh, nobody came out with you.
I think I saw a couple people outside, but no one like said anything. I was literally by myself. The club owner was there, who I kind of knew from going there for the past like 2 years, and I was just like, F you. I was like, fuck you, Nick. How could that happen to me? He's like, Michelle, I didn't know what they were doing. But I was like, do you think I'm
go
a
out
thieving
there and
whore?
find out?
Like, do you think I'm a thieving whore? I'm in your restaurant and your club almost every single weekend, And so you have these moments where you realize, like, I can't. I'm gonna say her name because I can't stand her right now in this video. So I can't be Candace Owens forever. Like, and that's I feel like that was my mentality from years of trying to ward off as much racism as I possibly could. Like, I want people to understand that, like, that's how pervasive racism can be. It can affect Black people. Like, I had racist thoughts about my own people. I had some serious self-identity issues. I'm like, wait, hold on. You know what I mean? Like, it fucks you up.
Yeah.
So it's not easy for anybody. Like, you have to go through these, through these feelings and emotions and ask yourself what it means. And like you said, what you're willing to put on the line, who are you willing to have in your corner, in your friendship group? I mean, since I really started to come into that, and especially since I've been an activist, my core friend group has, actually they're mostly the same, but there've been some shifts.
Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden Michelle's being more Black than she's ever been before.
More Black? Is that what you just said?
Right. Yeah. Like, I'm Black. This is what happens to me all the time. And people are like, ooh, all of a sudden, I'm not sure if we want to hang out with her anymore. Wow. Because I'm going to talk about things. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's been quite the transformation after becoming an activist, but it's like, okay, well, if I'm losing friends, I must be doing something right. I'm making people feel that uncomfortable. It's like, we've been friends my whole life, but they were cool with me when I didn't talk about Black issues.
Yeah, when you fit into their world.
When you fit into their world, when you
Right.
become, when you assimilate, and it's like, it was hard, man, because I wanted to be closer to the Black community growing up. I wanted to have Black friends, but it was like they would see me with the white people, and it was almost like I felt like they thought that I was better than them, and so there was that disconnect. But that I didn't really fit in with the white kids. Obviously, they accepted me, but they would say racist things and look at me